Hello, welcome back to Guitar Reese. Today, as you can see, I do not have my guitar, so I'm guitarless Reese. I'm actually just Reese. The reason I don't have my guitar today is that I wanted to talk about some interesting concepts that I feel like have really helped me learn guitar, memorize a lot of the stuff that I've memorized, and well, get to the stage that I'm at today. And I just feel like they're worth sharing with you guys as well. So I hope you get something useful out of this. If you're new here, go ahead and like and subscribe. It really helps support the channel, and I really appreciate it, and I think you'll enjoy some of the stuff on this channel. If you're old here, welcome back. Again, go ahead and leave a like and a comment at the bottom. I appreciate you. And let me know if there's anything you want to see me talk about. Okay, so the first concept I want to talk about is something that I call artificial necessity, learning through artificial necessity. And this is actually very similar to a concept that you you at the gym. And so, yes, the thumbnail is not bait. Here is this picture again on screen. Yeah. Juicy, huh? Didn't realize that, your average guitar YouTuber was also like some kind of Chad gym bro guy once upon a time. Not to harp on, but I'll just put my physical stats on screen real quick so you know what I was dealing with at the time. And I'll also quickly debunk that picture. I no longer look that way. That is at the peak of a 10 to 15 year weightlifting interest I had for a long time. That's all natural, but it's also the leanest I've ever been in my life, and it's also extremely difficult to stay that way, and it didn't stay that way. It stayed that way for like a month. Okay. But the gym concept that artificial necessity is just like is called progressive overload. Now, the definition of progressive overload, and this will make sense in a minute why I'm talking about this, but the definition of progressive overload, a principle of resistance training exercise that typically relies on increasing the load to increase your neuromuscular demand to facilitate further adaptations. So there's a misconception about weightlifting that once you understand can really be used to your advantage. So although we think to ourselves, big guy lifts big weights and gets big muscles, something I didn't think about a lot before I was lifting weights was like how that works, right? And essentially how it works is that you're putting circumstantial pressure on your body, i.e. you're lifting weights with your arm, say, so that your arm thinks that it's going to be lifting that weight in the future, and so it has to adapt to lifting that weight. And the way that your body does that is by growing a muscle, right? So it's funny because you're not working out a muscle in the way that you think you are, although you are. What you're trying to do when you're lifting weights is you're trying to trick areas of your body into growing muscle, and that's what you're doing with bodybuilding and weightlifting, right? So you're forcing your body to adapt to circumstances that you wouldn't normally be in, because who's doing heavyweight stuff all the time? And such is the same mentality that I want to talk to you about today with guitar, creating an artificial necessity, right? Like creating a way to trick your body into adapting to playing the guitar the best it can. You want to become fluent with the guitar, right? It's not that you can memorize every single song on the planet, because you can't. And it's not that you can memorize every way of playing on the planet, because you can't, but you want to make yourself, with guitar and with music, you want to make yourself capable enough to slip into new songs, into new keys, into new chord progressions as quickly as possible with any instrument. In my opinion, that's what it is to be fluent with an instrument, right? Like speaking. I don't just know a set of sentences I use words in any order I want to convey ideas, as does anybody who speaks. In this way, you want to become generally capable with a guitar. But herein lies the very difficulty, because often what we do when we learn a phrase on guitar, or we learn a song, we learn a cover song, we learn one way of playing the chords. I compare this to being like a guitar ninja, all right? So say you're a ninja and you need to fight any enemy when it comes along. And you have you've got moves, your punches and your kicks, and your swords and your ninja stars or whatever, right? So you don't just do them in the same order every time. That would be very strange. It doesn't even make sense to just do them in the same order every time. If you're a ninja fighting demons and samurais and whatever, you need to be able to pull out the moves in any order, anytime, right? So let's say you've got a set of 10 moves. You need to be able to go from move number 1 to move number 5, move number 2 to move number 7, back from 7 to 3, 7, 3, 6. Well, it's not fluent to just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's just copying. I can say something in another language that's just copying. Bonjour, je m'appelle Reese. Sorry for bad pronunciation, any French people out there. But right, so I'm not fluent in French, but I know a sentence. Okay. So when it comes to being fluent in music, you also, ideally, or in my mind, that's the goal, is to be able to switch from any note or any chord or any arpeggio to any other chord or note or arpeggio but as a meaning, as an idea, as a theme, right? You want to be able to switch throughout a song and play a solo as fluently. You want to become a guitar ninja. But you're not going to be able to play every single chord in every single order, and every single note in every single order in your entire life. But so how do you become fluent, right? I don't say every word all the time, but I use the words I need to use most frequently, and I use them in the order that I want. So these are where these concepts of artificial necessity come in. So in the same way that you do progressive overload, artificial necessity with music would be placing a kind of pressure on yourself in some way that your body has to adapt to, right? So it has to adapt to playing the guitar in the way that you want. So an obvious way to do this, the first one, is to use a metronome. As soon as you put the pressure of a metronome on, it's not just you playing the notes that you want in an order at any speed you want, you suddenly have to meet the demands of the clicking metronome, right? And as soon as you have to meet the demands of the clicking metronome, you're going to have to do it faster, or it's like sink or swim. And you will swim with enough time, right? Everybody swims with enough time. That's what we do. Another way that I've found that I've been able to apply artificial necessity has been writing songs. And this is what I always go on about. You might have heard me, this is what I'm always talking about in my videos, right? Start writing songs, not just as a tool to express yourself, although that is really cool too, because you actually discover stuff about yourself in those songs, but as a tool to learn the techniques for artificial necessity. So this is a little secret. Any song that's been on my channel, although it's a work of creativity, like anything is you do, any of those songs I've made them to practice a technique. It's funny because I look back at them and I listen to them and I can tell which technique I was trying to practice in each song. And so you can kind of pick it sometimes if you look at them, whether it's hybrid picking, whether it's mixing arpeggios, whether it's split triads or running scales really fast. I'm trying to get speed. I'm trying to get string skipping. Each of those songs I wrote to practice a skill. Okay, so that's another way you can create artificial necessity. So you want to write as many songs as you can with chords in as many orders as you can, and you want to keep doing them in a unique way. Right, for any Carl Jung fans out there, the place we're most afraid to look is the place with the most growth. Right, it's probably a bad paraphrase, but I always find when I go to learn a new technique or to incorporate a new technique, I find it really hard and overwhelming. But always working through those, it's like I forget the lesson every time, but always working through those is where I grow, is where you find strength. So if there's something you've seen on my channel you find hard, or something you've seen on any channel that you want to learn that you found hard, I suggest researching it and trying to learn it, putting it into even the most basic song, 2 chords in a row, 4 chords in a row, repeating. Set yourself a metronome timer and actually try to make it as fast as possible. The final result doesn't need to be as fast as possible. Some of the better songs are at a nicer pace. But to force that fluency on you, to become a guitar ninja, you need to do artificial necessity, in my opinion. Because just like your body, your mind, it's funny because you think you can focus with your mind enough to solve a problem, but sometimes feeding the info to your mind, to your subconscious, and letting it settle, letting it sit, right? Practicing a thing every day. You don't think about how much better you are each time. You become better each time you practice. Your brain does that for you, just like a body responds to progressive overload and builds muscle at the gym. Let me know if you can think of any other tips to create artificial necessity in the comments. It's something I find really interesting. I do it with like different finger practices, right? Sometimes just on a table, you can just, to get your mind thinking in different ways about it, right? Or on a fretboard, playing a chord in a different way. Playing a string of notes with different fingers than I normally would and getting that up to speed. But the goal should be clarity before speed too with artificial necessity. So as you build, always make sure it's perfect before you try and increase the speed. Here's just a bonus psych tip so when I was at university, I'm just revealing all the information about myself today. So when I was at university, I studied psychology. And I remember this class really well, and it just had a tip in it that I have just never forgotten. And it's been so useful for me for focus, especially with musical instruments in my life. So it was just about a psychologist who, when songs get stuck in your head, right? You got a song stuck in your head and you can't get rid of it. And it's like that ironic trying to get rid of a thing you're thinking of is thinking of the thing so you can't get rid of it, right? So he wondered, what's the most efficient way to get rid of a song stuck in your head? One idea he had was to replace it with a different song, but that just flips the problem, kicks the can down the road. So a really interesting game that he made up, and it's kind of a meditation exercise, but it's not really spiritual, it's just physical. What you do is you practice starting a sentence in your head and stopping that sentence, okay? So I'll give you an example. So you might think to yourself, The brown fox went to the library. Okay. Think it so you can hear the words in your head. And then just before the word library, stop saying the sentence in your head deliberately. At first, it's really hard because it's that instant conundrum of you're thinking of stopping the sentence that you're trying to say, and so the sentence will keep going. But what's really curious about this exercise when you try it a few times and over a few days is not only do you stop the sentence immediately, but you can vanish the idea in like a very literal way. So you can stop the sentence and have it be gone. Some days I've gotten so good at this that I'll stop and I will legitimately forget the sentence that I've stopped myself thinking about like in an instant. Now, its use to guitar, or its use to music that I've found, has been for focus, right? So you're trying to focus, you're thinking of other things, things pop into your head. Sometimes, you know what's weird is sometimes I'm playing guitar and I just think of like an embarrassing old thought, and it just like trips everything up. There's random embarrassing thoughts that pop into your head. Or, more technically, sometimes you're thinking of the string of notes, right? Where it's going to go as you're playing it, which is good. It's useful to literally visualize where your fingers will land. It's a very physical exercise you're doing with the guitar. It's not just notes coming out. But to be able to clear your mind, it's really interesting because when you sit with the still cleared idea mind, what you're left with is like this blank, well, I don't know if it's meditative, right? But it's like this blank, peaceful thing. And when you start practicing artificial necessity, putting something in there, it's like that blankness has opened the doorway to your subconscious. And I promise you'll sponge up the information so hard, or at least it works for me. So just to go around that one more time. So you say a sentence in your head, say the words in your head so you can hear the words. You hear, right? You don't hear it, you think the words or something. And then try to end the sentence halfway through. And not only end it, but end it for good. So you might feel it come back. That happens. You try and end it for good. And it's like a muscle. You work that muscle out and eventually get really good at just like banishing it. All right. So this has just been a couple of tips that I've wanted to talk about. If you've got any great tips for practicing guitar that improve focus or are like this, feel free to leave them in the comments too. I love to hear them. And please, if you enjoyed this or found it useful, go ahead and subscribe and like. And I appreciate you. I'll see you in the next video, and there will be some guitar stuff in the next video, I'm sure. All right. Bye.